And good afternoon. We welcome you into the Patrick Netherton Show right here on 1130 The Tiger. He's Rogers. I'm Patrick. Pleased to have you with us. And, normally we like to goof off a little bit during the first segment, just kind of chit-chat and whatnot. But we got real business to tend to, much like the brand new head coach of the LSU Tigers does. He is Jay Johnson, who was introduced here not too long ago and is taking over the reins of one of the great legendary programs in all of collegiate athletics, and certainly one could argue the best job in all of college baseball. Coach, first of all, how are you?
Patrick, thanks for having me on. I'm doing great. Couldn't be better.
Excellent. Well, look, obviously this is, I wouldn't say a Herculean task. There's a lot of things in place, but, this is a coveted job. People wanted it. Tell me why a West Coast lifer, a guy who, has kind of been in the Pacific time zone most of his life, why you decided this was the job that you wanted to pursue and ultimately take.
Yeah, great question. I think the simple answer is it is LSU. And when you think of LSU baseball in the 1990s, Skip Bertman and all the great players he had, and then Coach Maneri did a great job following him up and getting to Omaha 5 times. And this is the place. And you're right. It was a very small list of schools that would even get me to consider leaving my previous stop, but this was always the one and the place I hope to be at a long time and in my career at, and make the Tiger fans proud for a very long period of time.
Well, it's interesting because even though we mentioned you're a California kid, you've been, Nevada, Arizona, you've been on the West Coast pretty much your entire life. At the same time, you grew up and kind of came into baseball with a great reverence for Skip Bertman, and obviously everyone around Louisiana has that. How did you, how did that work for a kid who's over there on the West Coast to kind of grow up and want to be a lot like Skip Bertman and coach a lot like him?
Yeah, I think, for me, everybody wants to be a professional athlete. I was a pretty good high school running back. I thought I was going to win the Heisman Trophy someday, and then I started turning on the TV and realized there weren't too many 5'8", 165-pound running backs dominating Division I football,
right?
Or being Major League Baseball players. But the College World Series always felt like a realistic goal to me. Obviously didn't make that as a player, but that seemed like the pinnacle. And when I was that age and kind of growing up through that, the Tigers were always there, always playing well, always winning big games. And looking at Skip and how he did it and motivated people, like, this was always very intriguing to me. And as I started my coaching career as a young coach, kind of started studying his ways of motivating people and his teams and recruiting and all of those types of things, I've always had an eye on LSU. And when this opportunity presented itself at probably exactly the right time, I couldn't have been more excited about it.
You come to Baton Rouge with a tremendous offensive reputation. Obviously, your teams in Arizona hit the ball really well. You have that sort of offensive guru type of reputation coming in. How did this develop? How did you sort of get into being an offensive-minded coach, and sort of what philosophies do you ascribe to that have given you this approach and have made you successful at it?
Yeah, I've mentioned football before. I always loved football. My dad was my high school football coach, was drawn to scoring points and an exciting, brand of play, so to speak, and translating that to the baseball field. Used to coach third base, loved coaching third base, loved running offenses, loved trying to put pressure on other teams, and was able to do that very early in my career as an assistant coach. And then when I went to the University of San Diego, I got the opportunity to be the hitting coach, and I wanted our area of the team to be the best area of the team, and really dove into a development plan that's rooted in fundamentals. It's rooted in very solid mental game. It's rooted in very solid vision. It's rooted in strike zone discipline, in approach, helping hitters develop elite swings, situational hitting, and really what I want us to be is complete, to be able to win any kind of game against any type of pitcher, any type of ballpark, day, night, whatever, it doesn't matter. And so we've just developed kind of a development system from day one when they show up all the way through the time they go to the professional baseball draft that is geared towards creating a lot of problems for opposing pitchers. And so it's rooted in evaluating talent, building a solid work ethic and foundation. So we're the most prepared team in college baseball when we step in the batter's box.
Talking to Jay Johnson, the new LSU baseball coach, who is kind enough to join us. It's your introduction to North Louisiana, Coach. So we welcome you in. Just remember there is land north of I-10. Sometimes our brethren to the south forget that, but just remember we're here. I'm actually very curious, speaking of Louisiana, because Skip Bertman was really the pioneer of playing in-state opponents. You know, Nichols and McNeese and Northwestern State, who I know I call games for NSU. I know you've had some experience with Lane out in Arizona a couple of years back. You know, this is Tech and ULL or whatever. That's a big thing that Skip Bertman implemented when he got to LSU, and sometimes it was the traveling show, right? LSU's played at Northwestern, at Nichols, et cetera, et cetera. I'm curious. I don't know if you find that unusual or not. I don't know the setup that y'all had in Arizona in terms of playing other in-state opponents, but is that something that you're looking to continue with? Is not only playing in-state opponents, getting them to come to Baton Rouge, but occasionally taking your team on the road?
Absolutely, for a number of reasons. Number one, we do want to be the state's team. I believe we are the state's team, and so to get our program exposure throughout, so everybody in the state can see the LSU Tigers is important, and that has value. The other thing about this is we're trying to host regionals, host super regionals, and to do that, you want to build your RPI. We have a lot of that built in SEC play, but all those programs that you just named are incredibly successful, well-coached programs. As a matter of fact, at my time in Arizona, we had McNeese, Northwestern State, Nichols, and Southeast Louisiana come out and play us.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the quality of those teams, and the expectation is if they're on our schedule, they're going to go out and they're going to do well in their own respective conferences and help us build an even better RPI. So there's a lot of value, and I'm very much respectful of the quality programs that are in this state, and we are going to continue to play them.
Well, just be ready, Coach. Don't lose one of those midweek games, because here comes the worst season of all time. I'm just telling you, the LSU fans are brutal when it comes to midweek games. It's crazy. But that's part of right. That's part of the plus and minus of the fan base of LSU. They're as passionate as any fan base, but also high expectations. It actually leads me to a question of sort of interior versus exterior pressure. I've got to imagine that nothing that anyone outside of you or your program in terms of pressure can put on you is any greater than what you would put on yourself.
Yeah, honestly, I just want us to have a really good process of recruiting. I want us to have a really good process of development. I want us to have a team that is mentally strong, that stays focused on the task at hand. And if you do those sort of things and kind of put your blinders on, things have a way of working themselves out. And it takes a lot of mental discipline, takes a lot of maturity from the players and the coaching staff to stay focused at that level. But that's what we're going to do. And in doing that, and doing all of those areas and hitting our marks in those areas, I think we're going to have a program that the state is incredibly proud of and has a chance to be in Omaha and win a national championship, which is why I came here, because that is a realistic goal. Haven't been there twice and coming up just short one time. That's what I want to do. And I know that's what LSU fans want to do. So we're incredibly on the same page in terms of the things that we want. My job is to stay focused on the things that is going to help us get there. And that's what I'm going to do.
You mentioned being familiar with the collegiate programs around the state. How do you go about making sure? And look, LSU baseball is a thing unto itself. We all know that. Everybody knows that. But how do you go about starting to build those relationships with not just the college coaches, who a lot of them you already know in the state, but the high school coaches? Because look, LSU's a nationwide brand. You recruit from everywhere, but at the same time, a lot of homegrown talent shows up at LSU and has a lot of success. How do you start going about building those relationships with those coaches and athletes within the state?
Yeah, you get on the phone and you get out and you see games and you meet people. And it might take us a little bit just to get that started, but there's not too many things higher on my priority list than just that. When you look at our roster right now, there's a lot of good players from the state of Louisiana. You look at LSU's best team, there's a lot of really good players from the state of Louisiana. And my goal will always be to get the top 6 or 7 players in the state on any particular year to be wearing the purple and gold. And so that's priority number one. and making sure we get connected in here. And myself and our coaching staff are going to work really hard to do that.
Talking to Jay Johnson, new LSU baseball coach. All right, so obviously first priorities are figuring out your own team, and that means part of that is your staff. Jason Kelly comes from Arizona State as your pitching coach. I know the recruiting coordinator is coming. The hitting coach has to be there at some point in time. Kind of walk me through that process of hiring your staff and what you really want to have in terms of guys that are around you that are helping to build that championship program you're looking for.
Yeah, it's incredibly important decisions. Therefore, I haven't rushed them. I've interviewed actually like 12 people over the course of 5 days, and there's a lot of coaches that have a lot of really good skill sets. But what's important to me is what is best for LSU from a recruiting standpoint, from a developing standpoint. And I want these people to have an immediate impact on this roster that we have right now, to build a program within 1 year that these guys look around and go like, whoa, this is good. This is different. These guys get after it. They're expecting a lot out of us. They're giving us the resources and the teaching and the competitive nature to be successful. So I want great recruiters, but I want great developers. I want guys of high character. And that's kind of the thing that has separated some of the top guys that we're looking at. And we're just about finished in getting this thing wired. And I'm looking forward to getting that finish line and get the staff out recruiting and making the most of the time left this summer on the road, and really be rearing to go in August when the players get here, because we're going to start moving that first day of school.
You mentioned kind of knowing your players and learning about your players. How much can you learn from them with videotape as opposed to needing to see those guys in the cage, work with them up close and personal? Can you get enough out of just videotape and watching those guys that you have a leg up, or is that something you really need to be in person?
I think everything has its place. I definitely have looked at some video of some of our players. That was one of the main draws of coming here as well. Of course, it's one of the best programs in college baseball history, but those wins in the 90s aren't going to win us a game in 2022. What is going to win us a game is the personnel we have, the work that they put in. And so one of the main reasons in me making this move over here is I'm very excited about the talent in the locker room right now and what we can do with that talent. I think there's guys that had good seasons last year. I think there's guys that didn't have good seasons that can play and pitch better. And I'm excited to sink our claws into those guys and get to work with them, roll up our sleeves, get on the field, get after it, and get that improvement. So we're a team functioning at a high level come February.
And you got a little taste of that with the Team USA crew, having Cruz and your kid, Jacob Berry, who's transferring in from Arizona, watching them back-to-back. Did you just sit back and watch those guys and just go, okay, this feels pretty good for the upcoming season?
For sure. I mean, I'm very familiar with both of them. Jacob obviously had a tremendous year for our team this year, and you couldn't, turn on D1Baseball.com without reading an article about Dylan Cruz. And prior to that, I saw him play when he was 15 and 16 years old, and knew that was a special player. I remember thinking when he got through the draft and was coming to college, that was a massive lift for the LSU Tigers. So it's a great place to start, and then we need to support them with the right pitching. We need to support them with the right lineup construction, with the guys in the order getting better. And I think if we do that throughout, I think we got a chance to do some good things, and it's a good place to start with those two guys hitting in the middle of the order.
Doesn't hurt, that's for sure. All right, last couple of things, Coach. One, I want to talk a little more esoteric baseball. Back up just a little bit. Obviously, you're a guy. Your team hit for a high average. You mentioned that sometimes your team had a lot of sack bunts, just sort of depending on what your talent had. We're seeing in Major League Baseball this sort of home run or strikeout philosophy. Batting averages have plummeted. And obviously, they're coming back up after the pitching, taking the substances away from the pitchers. But do you see any of that sort of philosophy trickling down from Major League Baseball into collegiate baseball? Because it does seem like batting averages were down a bit this year in college baseball. Are you seeing that philosophy trickle down?
Well, I'm seeing it trickle down. It will not be a part of what we're doing here. I think I'm totally okay with home runs. Not really okay with a bunch of strikeouts. Sometimes just moving the ball is really important. I think there's a big difference between college baseball and Major League Baseball. those guys are so good defensively in Major League Baseball that when the ball's hit on the ground at somebody in the infield, they're going to pick it up, they're going to throw it across, and there's going to be an out. Or the positioning is usually done so well at the Major League level that they hit into the defense a lot. Here, there's openings. There's a little more value in just, frankly, putting the ball in play. So for us, we want to crush mistakes. We want to battle with 2 strikes, and we want to manage the strike zone at an elite level and really create an offense where we walk a lot, hit a lot of doubles, and hit some home runs with the guys that can. And when it's required to put the ball in play, we put the ball in play. So I want you to see a complete team that really handles at bats at a professional level, and I think that's something we have a very good handle on. I think we're going to have the players to do it, and I can't wait to start working with them on it.
All right, last thing, because our show, Coach, we're as much about food and barbecue and life as we are about sports. We like to intermix both. What have you already had in terms of good food? What are you looking forward to? Have people, told you, hey, this is the stuff you need to get? What's sort of your history with Louisiana cuisine, and what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, the history of my time here so far, which has been about 9 or 10 days, is the first day Coach Maneri and I went out to lunch, and he had me try some alligator, and it was very good.
There you go.
We're off to a good start there, and I'm ready to dive into all things Louisiana. Like I said, we want to make this our home, be here forever, and really appreciate the warm welcome from all the people throughout the state. Excited to dive into the food and the culture and make our baseball program something everybody in Louisiana is really proud of.
Well, unfortunately, you got in just towards the back end of crawfish season, so you're probably going to have to wait a little bit for the really good crawfish, but trust me, they're delicious. And I will tell you the number one rule, Coach, of eating Cajun food is don't ask what's in it, just eat it. That's the number one rule.
I love it. Dive in.
Coach, hey, congratulations on the move. Obviously, we look forward to a great relationship with you. And when Northwestern State's down there, I'm sure next year I'll come down and say hi to you when I'm getting ready to call that game. But we're proud to have you here and definitely looking forward to what you got coming up, Coach.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. Have a good day.
All right. Jay Johnson, the new head coach of the LSU baseball team.